to the third annual 45Drives Creator Summit 2025. A very interesting summit. Most of it's under our belt and behind us, in our wake, whatever cliches I can get for things behind us. And it's been really interesting. So what we want to do in this live stream is just anybody out there who hasn't been following along can listen to everybody. And look, my whole thing of doing this, it's about listening and learning, connecting with the world, and sit here, do this. It's a whirlwind, listening to everybody's ideas, and then got to digest it and figure out what was there. It was a lot of ground covered, and so yeah, what we want to do is we're just going to pass around every creator, and we'll take 5 minutes, and we'll be really cool to hear your wrap up and what you've gotten out of it. I will take my place and good time, but we're going to go over and head off to Jeff and Craft Computing #1. And Jeff, let us know, but 5 minutes, what was your experience? What are your takeaways? And if you want to throw in advice, whatever you want to say, 5 minutes, all yours.
Wow, starting big here. All right, I am Jeff with Craft Computing. Thank you once again, 45Drives, Doug, for having me. I've been to all 3 creator summits now, and it's a fantastic experience every single time. People who watch my show, you've seen my wrap up from this event the last couple of years, but this year felt a little bit different, vibe. Obviously, we're here in Wilmington instead of up at your usual home base in Sydney. So you know, got to check out a new city and check out some of the new digs. I liked this week a lot. Rather than just focusing on storage, and Brett started out the week this week saying, you know, storage is kind of boring. It's what you do with it that makes it interesting, and I that was really, I think for me, the main focus of this week. Not only do we have, you know, wonderful, you know, YouTube creators, tech creators here, you know, Tom, Wendell, you know, etc. You know, who usually dive into the technical details of things like this. We have some amazing, you know, artists and creators here, you know, my new friend Joe over here doing the New York City skyline time-lapse and whatnot. And there was a much larger focus on not just the storage aspect of things, but what the infrastructure of having that storage and that ability allows artists to do. I thought that was just a phenomenal theme for the week. Short wrap up of my talk. I walked through kind of the process of making my storage infrastructure invisible and making that work within my workflow. I'm going to do a full dedicated video on that here in the next couple of weeks, but kind of in brief, the way I've arranged my storage infrastructure at home to help with my creative process, with my video editing, is my process for editing a video and storing all my files is literally now drag and drop. I drag it off of my media onto my NAS, and then when I'm done with that, it deletes it. However, in that one process, in that one drag and drop process, I have a 3-tier, 3-2-1 backup solution. I know my data is safe, it's always accessible, but it's something I don't have to think about. I don't have to actively move files around or make sure that it's backed up or make sure that I have this one file accessible to me. It took all of that, the complexity of the storage infrastructure, and made it completely invisible to me as a tech who is normally into the techie details. But sometimes you need that to fade into the background so you can focus on the artistry and the actual work that you're doing. So more details coming out about that. Like I said, I'm going to do a full dedicated video and kind of explain the whole process in the next couple of weeks. But this has been a lot of fun. So thank you guys.
Awesome. Cool. The democratization of technology, right?
Exactly.
And once upon a time, lots of capital, you had infrastructure to do your art, and today anybody can do it, but it's still a zoo, right? So you got to know how to tame that zoo.
So right. Democratization is our de-Microsoftification of the year. I still can't say the old one, but we've gone a little easier this time.
Absolutely. Anyway, thanks, Jeff. Okay, Joe.
Cool, fantastic. Thanks for having me here. My name's Joe. I'm the creator of the 30-year-long time-lapse in New York City. I just finished 10 years of nonstop time-lapse. which on that first camera is just over 10 million images. Being at the summit has been unbelievable, because I'm amazed. You know, you figure like you might sit through some things that have nothing to do with your project or your artwork, and every single person who I got to see speak, I was like, oh, that's that's me. You know, that's me. We're all doing crazy things in the name of art or in the name of science or, you know, whatever we're using the products for. And I just think that's really exciting. Yesterday, the day ended with a stunt. And listen, if it says stunt, I'm going to be there. Like, I was hoping for like maybe a dirt bike jumping over a server, but when
Next year.
when I saw
They told me no.
That's when Robert.
We're going bigger next year.
next year. You know, like some Evel Knievel kind of thing. But I was thinking just now, I'm like, come to my apartment. That's the stunt. like I'm processing 1 million raw image files at the same time. Like, let's see what kind of crazy, weird stuff we can do. Let's see what we can crash with that. It's funny being here. I've learned some things that I absolutely should have already known. I know myself in a lot of ways I'm self-taught. You know, we're all going to YouTube to figure out how to do some really high-level, complex stuff. And it's like, I didn't know the name for the 3-2-1 rule. And like, thank you, Jeff. I mean, that's like day one of data, I'm sure. But like, I do have hard drives in my friend's basement 2.5 hours away from where I live, so I'm doing it. But I didn't know the name for it, and it's just, it just speaks to like how much I've learned here, you know, being among these people. And, you know, shout out to Nick also, because like, I learned, I'm a professional filmmaker, you know, I've worked for a lot of great, you know, my work has been seen at the Venice Film Festival, recently at the Tribeca Film Festival, the New York Film Festival. I'm really proud of my work. And I learned things about color yesterday from Nick that I just didn't know. You know, he like went down to the basics. He went high level, mid level, everywhere in between. And I'm just really lucky to be here for that. And then aside from that, you know, I've been developing my project. It took me about 2 years to develop my project, where I take a picture of the New York City skyline every 30 seconds. And I want to go for 30 years. Not even after, during my presentation, Jeff's hand just kept going up, because I have a system that goes from A to B to C to D, and you know, we end up at like F, where we have like the final product. And Jeff was just like, you can go from A to F.
Yeah, we can drop so many lines out of that equation and simplify it. And so, yeah, we'll probably be talking here in the next couple of months and working on some things.
And I just want to emphasize the simplify for so many reasons. You know, I'm shooting in New York City, but I want to be shooting in Tokyo and Paris and Mexico City. Like, I want a camera all over the world. I think that would be really exciting. And it has been a non-starter, because the price of creating one of my systems is around like $12,000 or $14,000, and I have like $5.20. And there's two amazing things about the ideas that Jeff has given me. It brings the price way down by thousands of dollars, but it also, I can already tell, you know, we were just chatting about a lot of things. I rely on Lightroom in my process. I spent probably an entire year trying to figure out how I could pull Lightroom out of the process. But if we do, or when I do, it's going to make things a lot simpler, and there'll be a lot less failures, which is the exciting part for me. And that's all. Thanks for having me.
Beautiful, thank you. Nick, yeah, color, you brought some color into my life there in your talk, so yeah.
Hi, so my name is Nicholas Wasinski. I'm the founder and head colorist and head editor at my company at NGW Post. So what I kind of took away from this convention is my world is just so focused on project and product delivery and software, and how can we ink out the best results out of the hardware. And what I kind of learned from this was just the power of open source, and the ability to have the flexibility and power of, let's say, the Proxmox, the presentation you guys did yesterday. It was like, wow, like the hardware has gotten so incredibly great and fast and essentially affordable. It blows me away. Just like Doug and I had a conversation earlier about when I first started back in the early 2000s, when Thunderbolt or when FireWire 800 was around, and we worked at a job where I had a daisy chain 12 of those drives to get the masters or the camera originals off of them, and it was like a nightmare. Like you touch it, you breathe on it, it would just like disconnect. And so, you know, a lot of the presentations, you know, I sat in and watched was just to learn and see how technology has evolved, and it's just so incredible. So, yeah, and so like, and of course, like too, like I sat in, and I'm not the most tech savvy person, just like our friend over here, and so I don't want to recap a lot of these things. So
I don't know why we keep pointing to you.
I can write some code, all right?
yes, that's more than I can do.
Some, like hello world.
So yeah, so like I said, it's just really incredible, and I was really astonished of everything that we can do.
Cool, and you know what? I don't know about you guys, but I'm not gonna look at a film again without thinking of, you know, I know color from natural lighting business, from being a couple of physics degrees, engineering degree, but to see it, you know, contrasting color wheel stuff in film, I'm not going to look at scenes again without, that's a problem, you know, if you're a technical mind, right? You look at something, you know, the technology behind it. That was really cool. Also, the deep glimpse you gave us into workflow, incredibly helpful, and for us, and we had a conversation after, you know, one of our things in storage, the ability to move data in and out. We're going to have some good conversation. I'm going to really pick your brain.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that.
Yeah,
I'm really excited about that.
How to move data around and stream it, because that should be done open source right from the same appliance, from a simple GUI. And I think we can make that happen, but we can't make it without somebody in the industry who understands the problems. So again, you know, sitting in, I didn't get to sit in all the talks and get enough out of the creative stream, but I got that one. And yeah, some inspiration, I think.
Well, yeah, and so that's one of the biggest things the industry has kind of focused and jumped over hurdles to kind of understand is during COVID, everyone went home. You know, unfortunately, the pandemic hit, and how now, what tools do we need so people can continue to work from home? And then those tools can also be applied to the people on set. And so all this stuff's really connected really well, and so our conversation about transferring footage, stuff like that, it's just really exciting.
That's cool, which brings us to the almost incredible Wendell Wilson next, and which kind of GPU virtualization was one of the little glimpses of things that relates into your world. So anyway, Wendell,
Wendell, I'm from Level 1 Techs. We think computer janitor, so I can enable stuff. And so my mission was to try to get you to think outside the box. When you move processing capabilities closer to storage, it unlocks a lot of capabilities. VDI is one of those capabilities, AI acceleration. Everybody talks about AI. I think the AI stuff is super interesting, but everybody is exploring that chapter of things, which is driving some of the hardware innovation. But the open source software innovation, you bring it together, and it's like you're talking about creative workflows. A lot of those workflows are enabled because you can do the processing close to the storage. It doesn't have to go over the network. And you know, a lot of people don't have absurdly high-end networking infrastructure. That's okay. You don't have to go over the absurdly high-end networking infrastructure. You can build a cluster out of machines that are direct connected to each other and still live with your, let's call it what it is, obsolete network, without upgrading all of your infrastructure, because the compute has moved close to the storage for a lot of other reasons. We can pick up the crumbs and make life better in a lot of other ways. So that's, you know, just showing you that kind of thing and doing the videos and the tutorials and all that kind of stuff. That's sort of what I have fun with, and also seeing how people solve problems once they have those tools. You know, you have some new tools in your toolbox, let's solve it. Let's coast on all of this. And as I'm sure Alan will tell you, it's like, we're, you know, at the base of this, ZFS is an option. That's $1 billion file system. How would you like to have $1 billion file system used in your stuff? Like,
for free.
Yeah. For free. Yeah. That sounds pretty good.
And you know what, the wonder of owning computer gear, if you don't own obsolete equipment, you will in a couple of years, so you're good.
Just wait.
Yeah, just wait. So.
And the great thing about open source is you don't have to use ZFS. If you want to use, you know, something else for replication, there are other paths to replication. You can literally build whatever you want because the platform is open. You're not dependent on, you know, if it's like, okay, I'm going to buy a Stornado, but you're not dependent on 45Drives to give you the exact configuration you want. You can take it, you can mix it, you can do whatever you want with it.
Absolutely. So we move on, and enterprise stream. So DRBD, block replication, and something that we've only joined up with you guys at Linbit and DRBD project recently, and we really see a really cool place, ZFS kind of cornerstone for us, Ceph and DRBD relating to it, and we're just really learning architecturally why, but you came and gave us a great talk. So what all did you see out of the summit, and what did you get from it, Devin?
Yeah, thanks, Doug. So yeah, my name is Devin Vance. I'm with Linbit. As mentioned, we do the block storage replication in Linux. This is my first year here. I want to thank 45Drives for the hospitality. It's been great. It was just, it was really reassuring hearing from Alan here with ZFS and Mitch, just to know that they all struggle with some of the same hurdles we do when it comes to squeezing out maximum I/O. I learned a couple tricks, that I'm excited to try myself for our next round of benchmarking. So that's been enlightening, and the conversation's been great. It's also really interesting to learn about film and how much that relates to storage. I guess I never really thought about it, but film's obsolete. Everything's just high-res digital, and that's going to take a lot of storage. And yeah, I guess you're all kind of remote work's becoming more common, so you move that large data around. That was really interesting as well. Yeah, it's been enlightening. Just thank you.
Beautiful. Thanks. So that takes us to our own Mitch Hall, and some interesting work. Ceph, which has its own place, and you've done a whole bunch of work. And Mitch, we love to get Mitch to do projects and stunts and things like that. And so the whole thing of the theme of ultra high speed storage. So what happens when you apply it to Ceph and Mitch? So what all, as a participant in this, what's your view? And
Yeah, so I think the theme that really kept coming back to me during this week was, interestingly enough, it was the actual theme of Wendell's talk, and that is thinking outside the box. So my role as the chief architect at 45Drives is really to always be thinking about ways to solve the customer's problems and ways to solve their needs, what they need to get done. And so sometimes, right, when, for me specifically, especially with Ceph, my head has been so deep into Ceph for several years now, and sometimes, if you're a hammer, everything kind of looks like a nail. And at the end of the day, that isn't really best for the customer, right? You want to make sure you're getting the best thing. And so listening to Alan's talk, that was really enlightening for sure. And just, a huge proponent of ZFS. I spent years with ZFS as well. But as I said, kind of Ceph has just been my focus. And so it was nice to pick my head up and be like, oh yeah, ZFS is not only possible for a lot of these things, it might even be the better use case or the better solution for some of these things, and seeing just how well actually ZFS can scale. You think about ZFS maybe isn't great for a certain scale, but there is ways to make it fantastic at those scales. And then thinking about the future with these large sector size SSDs and NVMEs coming down the pipeline, thinking about how to deal with that early before it becomes an actual really big problem. Also, same thing with DRBD, looking at that and seeing how can we solve a customer's needs for this, and looking at really cool the diskless mode in DRBD, and seeing you can essentially use it like an iSCSI solution where you use native protocols, kind of like what Ceph does, so you're not using an additional layer on top of things. So really enlightening, really cool. And then just overall being able to kind of listen to everyone talk, and then getting OpenStack influence in, and kind of thinking about that again, and Kubernetes, all these things, right, are swirling around in my head, and I'm really excited to get back to the office and look at, we've got all these customers with all these really differing and wildly different needs, and how can we meet those needs the best way possible. I think that was really the big thing for me. So thank you, everybody. Oh, and then just one more thing also with the DRBD, thinking of it just as a block layer and nothing else, but they have this whole other product called LinStore, which brings in the software-defined solution part of it, which makes it very much in line with something like Ceph. or ZFS with a different with additional stacks. So really, really cool. I've got a lot of time in the lab coming up for sure, and also we found so many new things that we want to test with Ceph. So my talk really diving into high performance Ceph with NVMe, and alongside of that developing a white paper which will be released to the public really, really soon. Seeing what else we can test and what more we can bring into our stable. Again, like I said, beating a dead horse to meet the customer's needs, exactly what they need done. So that was huge.
Customers.
I forgot something that's really important, which is UNCC, we're planting the seeds in the head of the next generation. It's like, it's not a home lab yet, it's a dorm lab.
Shh, we're gonna have a new division.
So Mitch, and again, I love it, and what you said, putting your head up and looking around.
Yep.
If you want to have success in technology, you got to go deep. You have to focus on details. One detail wrong, it doesn't work. So we get drawn into it, don't we?
Yeah,
And then when you get drawn into there's a world around it. And yeah, it's really cool to put your head up, and it is the whole purpose of it. So I love the fact you articulate that. Brett Kelly.
Yeah. So my name's Brett. I'm with 45Drives, technical director. Like Mitch and Doug here, we've been through three. Luckily to been through all three of these with a lot of friendly faces here and new ones. And I'll just start out by saying, just from the event point of view, we get more ambitious every year. But man, it was really fun to do it down here, particularly having the 2 tracks and growing the topic. Like it was always creator themed. Like I've said it before, a couple talks I've said, like we've always sold massive storage to creators, but it was really nice to have people come in and focus their talks on, you guys, I often hear people say they're not technical in reference to other technical people. You said so many things, Nick, that I had never even heard about before. So my point is like that, everyone's got their thing they bring, and when you, the fact that we grew the mindset out a little further, yeah, we still had the nugget of architecture and IT architecture, that you get more and more people coming and sharing different things, and I don't know, you learn stuff from it. So I love that part. I love that we had guests. There's a couple familiar faces that have been with us each day, so thank you for coming. And then, so into the talks and stuff, another vote for Mr. Jude here. Very, very clear understanding of why ZFS is awesome and why it isn't awesome for NVMe right now. And it's because you make and say that so clearly, the rest of us can then say, instead of, oh, ZFS and NVMe don't work very well, we can say, this is why, and this, and then the whole machine starts to move and change, because people, instead of going, oh, it's a bug, well, no, it's not a bug, it was never a feature, we never planned to do this. If you don't classify it right, it doesn't get treated right. So, loved that talk. All the talks are great. Joe, I particularly loved yours for the same reason I opened. I do really believe, like, storage is fun. This stuff, solving these problems, those puzzles, they get you going. Nothing gets your adrenaline up. But I really do mean it that it's worthless if no one uses it after you set it all up and make it work. So seeing things like that, and you telling the story about someone scrolling, seeing the day that, this is the day my mother died, and then some other's comment was, well, this is the day my daughter was born. And then that happened. You got your piece of joy from that, and then it's like, oh, we all enabled it. So as cheesy as that might sound, it's friggin' awesome to be that kind of silent infrastructure layer underneath, whether it's making that happen or bringing everyone together so that we all talk. So anyway, it's cool to see the growth of this event. All the talks were amazing. I didn't get to see them all, unfortunately, but all the ones I did see were great. I'm probably missing a thought, but that's the main from the heart. So yeah.
Thanks, Brett. And yeah, Brett, you're describing, I live vicariously through our customers and users, and it's really cool, you people who use our products. It's just so cool to, yeah, get to see it and get to see the impact of it.
Actually, one other thing, I'll jump in on the more technical side. It's really interesting when the whole world went remote as hell and all the tools in development went crazy, and numerous times it came up in the people's different talks, enterprise or John asked Chris Walldorf, what's still missing in your workflow? And he was like, the remote stuff's still it's still a little janky. Everyone still does it a little different. It almost feels like where everyone's kind of pulling back in that world a little bit, like the focus and development have stopped. Anyway, where we can now, Wendell's insight on the vGPUs and Intel kind of giving us that for free and stealing that from the, ideally, hopefully, market from NVIDIA, we can look at that problem and solve things for people anyway. That was an interesting thing, that still hasn't quite been solved yet. Now I'm done.
So all this technology we use, things that you just kind of, I don't know, we rely on them and take them for granted, and they're always there for us and everything else. And ZFS, this amazing file system, got introduced to, seems like 100 years ago now, probably less than that. But I remember one of my early introductions to it. Somebody, University of Santa Cruz, sysadmin,
Yeah.
there, and had bought our, when we first started in the business, probably 20, past. Yeah. And he said there, I've been using it for 5 years or something like that. And he says, have yet to lose data. And we're going, that's pretty cool, because I've lost data. So anyway, that's ZFS. But glimpse under the hood, Alan, thank you so much for being part of this. Really amazing to give us that glimpse. So how's your experience? And
yeah, it's been great. So I'm Alan Jude from Clara, and we provide technical support and development services around ZFS. And it was really interesting to see both how other people are approaching things, so Mitch's talk and how they were benchmarking and some of the different aspects, and again, giving me more ideas to go home and try as well. And then Wendell's talk was great, looking at thinking outside the box, but also framing the storage features as what you can do with it rather than just what the file system does, and how you can combine some of those features together to make something and make a better business case for it. But then all of it, like just DRDB and how they actually are using ZFS in LinStore, and how those different pieces fit together, and where you can take advantage of ZFS's flexibility while adding additional features from things like DRDB to get the replication in real time under the hood. But it was also super interesting to see Nick's talk and learn more about, I've designed systems for a lot of different like post-production houses and so on, but never understood some of their workflow, and especially like what the colorist is doing, going back and forth over the same little bit of file over and over and over again.
torturing themselves.
The madness.
But
Removing a leg.
understanding that bit of the workflow makes it that much easier to optimize for it in the future. And just understanding all those pieces and what the requirements are and why those are the requirements, and how just a greater understanding of that makes it easier to propose different solutions and other ways to solve the same problem. But it's just great to see from everyone, even like
Down.
Tom's talk about.
You got them facing the wrong way.
I kept trying to say Lawrence, and I was like, that's his last name.
Lawrence is fine though. I go by either.
But talking about, the cloud and why everybody wants to put everything there, but why a lot of times, if you're storing a lot of data for a long time, it maybe isn't the most cost-effective solution. But understanding some of why people are afraid of hardware. So much of our view is colored by our own experience. And having been into hardware since I was a little kid, I've never been afraid of it. But I can definitely understand, especially people that are younger now, it's really interesting to see how most of them don't even know what a file system is. Right? You save a file in an app on your device, and if you want to move it to a different app, you use the share button and just send it to the other app. You don't actually understand that there's directories and
Permissions.
file systems and
metadata.
metadata or that there are different namespaces. So that's on this server and this is on a different. It's like, no, it's just all the cloud, right? It's all just magically connected together. And we have to look at how to be able to speak their language and make them not afraid of the hardware, because the hardware can do so much for them, and it can be such a better solution. It's higher transfer rates, lower latency, more control over it. But also just other things, like Wendell talked about doing the retrieval augmented generation, and how we can, by putting a little bit of GPU in the storage, be able to use all that data we have stored for our own purposes without having to give it to anybody else. And I think there's a lot to be done there.
Color grading without the network.
Yeah. And I think to kind of your point with the younger generation, we seen during the stunt with the Proxbox, there's a hesitation I think he had when he seen all the wires, like, well, what do I pull? Because it's not a familiar territory for them.
Great point.
Yeah, so there's like, well, as I right away, we pull a little thing on here, this is how it comes out. But that's important because they're not as familiar with it as, me or Alan and many of us here. We grew up with touching the hardware, so we're not afraid of it. But it is really interesting to see the people that are, just because it's just inexperience. They just haven't touched it, and I think we need to bring that experience to them.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. We've seen in college campuses as well, so we do a lot of work with the campus at home, is at one point they were actually going to completely remove the hardware component and do it all virtually. So use like obviously not PC Master, like PC Builder, but something like that, right, where you're not actually getting your hands on with the hardware, and I thought that was such a terrible idea, because sometimes people come out of school with a degree and have never touched a piece of hardware, never put a CPU into a motherboard, and never put RAM into a motherboard, and things like that. So, yeah, it's definitely very important.
You've done a bad thing. You came here and whetted our appetite for CLX and expansion beyond the normal physical limits. Can't wait to see that happen. And then our conversations, your talk and conversations about multi-queue and the ability to really build architecture around NVMe. So don't feel too much pressure, but I really look forward to seeing those done soon. So you guys can get everybody in the project
I think they're taking sponsors.
Yep. All
how
good.
the machine
Conversation
runs.
there for sure.
And actually, sorry, just piggybacking on that too, after you gave that talk, Josh Boudreau, one of the engineers I showed out in that while we were moderating, he messaged me after, he was like, that CXL stuff looks cool. So that whole inspiration of you forget all the people who aren't here still watching, telling us all this stuff. Anyway.
Just the idea of having a massive ARC pool is just like the thoughts just keep.
And there's a lot of piles of DDR4 laying around.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Like,
know as far as just like, what an awesome out of the box thought. Like even
But even just, or DDR3 even, but also what was really interesting about having that conversation is Wendell was in the room and he had another bit of information that I didn't have.
Yeah.
That, how's it going to work with NUMA? They can actually show up as another domain with no CPU resources, so your operating system's virtual memory manager can know that RAM's a bit slower, but it's great for the ARC. Let's use it for that. Yeah. And we can save the faster RAM for the AI workload. Or whatever.
NUMA without a CPU is an interesting concept. I think was it? It was Gigabyte. I think that makes the cards. Is that?
Gigabyte has cards and also Smart Modular. The cards are in stock right now at Mauser.com.
Awesome. There you go.
I love it.
I love your plug face.
So I remember a day a few years back, Brett Kelly, he called me up and said, Red Hat and Marielle and and CentOS and everything else. And,
I said, Doug, it's all over.
A little bit of a dark time, but the wonders of
December
open
11th.
source, that risk was talked about, that risk of having the rug pulled out from under you is mitigated by that open source license. Your hand along comes Rocky Linux, or the idea for it, and we said, hell yeah, we'll sponsor that, and we did. Neil, I missed your talk, and unfortunately,
I did too. So
right on. I will be listening to all the ones that I couldn't attend. Something I have 2 tracks, right?
Yeah.
Pick and choose between
Always
2
the curse
things.
of 2 tracks.
yeah.
But anyway, so how was your experience?
Well, first, thank you very much for inviting me, and your hospitality here has been excellent. So thank you very much. And I'm Neil. I'm one of the co-founders of Rocky Linux and a member of the board and kind of help run community and stuff there. So yeah, my experience here was really excellent from all of the talks I did see, and I similarly was missing out on a lot of the creative talks, but I didn't get to see Nick's, and I don't want to be a dead horse, but like that was incredible. I don't know if it was only because it was the one the one creative track I saw, but it genuinely opened my eyes more to the workflows and stuff that are being supported and run and use not necessarily Rocky, but open source and the technologies built out there that there's a whole suite of things that were running through my head about you're doing all of this live kind of work editing stuff. It's very similar to live music production over the internet, and there are solutions that have done those things, and so it's that more than anything, this weekend, I think, or week has opened up my mind to different things that I want to go and look into. Above and beyond that, I mean, the storage performance in the new, work that Mitch has done, and all of the other work that we've seen to enable different sorts of outside-the-box thinking and experimentation, certainly has been what I'm taking away from this, and to try and experiment more and question more of, some assumptions maybe that I have had about where things are going and what workflows are great, and maybe there's 5 or 6 steps that can be removed just by thinking a little bit outside the box. So.
And then we get to Tom. So Tom, you got this thing as I've gotten to know you over the years, ability to dive deep on tech, but to always go back up that customer space and connect the business space. Thoughts and ideas, because these things got to connect at the end of the day, right? You do a great job of not only understanding it, but communicating it. And your talk on cloud was totally awesome.
Thank you.
And we look at that, and the bill that I saw for a month of cloud, and go, God, 20,000 apps, 100 terabytes. You could, month and a quarter of that buys you way more power and space than that. God, it's amazing. Anyway, sorry, I loved it so much, or ran about it, but over you, Tom.
Yeah, no, and I think it's an important thing. That's why I touched on it, because we can go back and say, like Nick. Nick said something that broke our nerd hearts. If you guys were paying attention in the slide where he said, Windows, Mac, whatever, it's all about outcome. These are tools. And our nerds were like, whoa, we are passionate.
Did you not listen to us last year? Everybody sit down.
This is something that matters to us. But that's something important overall, is thinking about what is the customer experience? What is the end user who uses this? We're debating Ceph, we're debating ZFS, which is tools. I'm positive Nick is like, whatever tool works, and he doesn't share that, but I mean, these passions do matter. They are important aspects of it, but that's why I think about it from the big picture, because we do eventually have to put it in the hands of Nick, in the hands of Joseph. They need these tools to be able to create their art, and that's where this is kind of fun. We have the fundamentals, the building blocks, the hardware from 45Drives, or the tools from ZFS or Ceph, and or the operating systems we choose to run these with Rocky Linux, and Linbit to sync it all, and then we have the people who are the builders, and we have Wendell and Jeff over here. I want to say Dead Mouse because he just chose a different tag.
It was available.
Identity theft.
But it's all an orchestration that leads up to those. And I think that's really cool to have this as a creator summit, where it's all ends, like the end result, the artist and a product, down to the product that we look at in our hardware. And the other thing is, I last year spent an extra couple days in Nova Scotia, hung out, and I had some good discussions with Doug, and we front loaded it this time. I came in early, spent some time with some of the staff here. One thing that I think is really important is culture. The only thing different, I did this post on LinkedIn as well after just spending a day here, of the culture is the same. The only thing different is the accent. And so they say about a little different here. And so, but that's an important thing, because the culture drives the innovation. It drives the results. And seeing that here in Wilmington, it feels just like being in Nova Scotia with the employees. They're the same things going on. It's a different crew with a different accent, but it's the same results. It's the same innovation and passion for things. And that's really what drives it, and it's one of the things that keeps 45Drive interesting. The things that was talked about at the end of my talk was when companies become disconnected from their customers. And 45Drives, I mean, Doug's sitting here with us. There's an absolute commitment from the top down that we will always understand what the end result, what the Nicks and Josephs are doing, so we always understand how our product will lead up to their liking, their end result. And I think that's kind of fun, and that culture's here top to bottom, and I think it's just something that makes 45Drives different. You're very public facing. We're giving away all this stuff that we do right here for live streams. Anyone can just watch this on YouTube, and the passion you had behind it. But that's the overall here, which is cool to see it. You didn't just start something in the U.S. It's the same thing, just happens to be in the U.S. and bringing the people back and forth. And of course, you send them up there for training, because you acclimate them to your culture.
Indoctrinate.
And indoctrinate them in.
Re-education camp.
Re-education camp.
Careful.
Make sure they understand the values. And it comes true. It's always fun, and all of us have said the same thing. It's always fun working with 45Drives, and I think the community you built around it is amazing.
Sometimes it's also showing the customer what's possible. I mean,
Yes.
Mitch, like when Mitch and I were talking about let's build the thing for the, to show off the whatever, he did all the work, and it was just like, here's like the rough thing that nobody realizes they can do, and he's like, oh, we have all the Legos for this, I can figure this out. And I'm sure it was a lot of hard-won insanity, but to show that, you know, the maturity of the system is to the point where it is basically almost point and click. For the VDI part of it, it is basically almost point and click. A lot of customers don't realize that this thing that was enterprise exclusive, like you had to have somebody from one of the big name, you know, sell you the thing and consult to put it together. Whereas now, you know, their internal tech team can handle it. It's a huge. It's like the world has moved 20 years in 5 years.
Yeah, and not only can it run Crisis, it can live migrate Crisis.
It can live migrate crisis.
Yeah.
Our demo the other day, watching this gear that we make, the ultra performance storage, marry that with a high core count compute board and lots of RAM. And then as Wendell said, hey, while we're doing this, why don't we throw in that royalty-free virtualizable GPU? And I'm going, and all of a sudden we saw video games being played. And,
You know what's irritating about that is I have, I think, 23 videos on my channel about VDI. Wendell did 20 minutes on that server and it's up and running. And I'm like, come on.
It used to be a lot harder.
It used to be a lot harder.
Yep.
No, that's it. And look, the Wilmington thing, it's really interesting. One of our big fears about moving to a second location was culture. What's it take to take our workplace culture? We're passionate about it. I don't want to walk into a place where I wouldn't want to work.
Right.
And anyway, it seems to be very successful. We're 25 employees, and we're 500 at home. We're 25 here. Our growth is going here. Love this town, and we've had our first 25 hires have been phenomenal.
Yeah,
And I'm glad. Thank you
Yeah.
for pointing out that you're feeling that, because it was our reluctance. We would have done this years ago. I was scared of all the things I was scared of. It's having that culture run away and turn into, I will say, corporate America has made us rich. We should be grateful for it, but it chews through humans. And how do you make a human workplace culture with all at every corner of it? And we've been working our butts to do it. So thank you for noticing it and mentioning it. Really appreciate that.
You're
You
welcome.
listening, college students?
And I'll shout out again, particularly Colby, Chris, and Braden for all the tech help behind the scenes as we go back and forth. You guys have been nothing but helpful.
Our first 3 tech hires were AJ, Braden, and Colby. Yep. The ABCs, I could remember their names really easy because I have struggled on that.
Is that on purpose?
I don't think so, but it should have been. We're going to see if we can do that more often.
Yes.
Do D
Need a
next.
D.
I'll say, I don't know, Devin, do you need a drum?
So anyway, no, it's been really wonderful. They just have a great core here, and I think they're having fun. Are you guys having fun? So good.
They're still here.
Yep, they're still here.
Maybe I should chime in, or I'm going to get my filmmaker's license taken away. Film is, on behalf of Nick and I, film is not obsolete. We're still shooting film. But we're then scanning it and making outrageously large, cumbersome files. So it's still a data problem. Don't worry.
Isn't that interesting? I used to do photography in years gone by on good old-fashioned film and develop it with all those chemicals and everything else. And glad to hear it's still there. I mean, the analog processes have, there's value to them, and you capture stuff.
I think that also
Yeah,
implies that you're doing more than 3, 2, 1 backups, because you also have the physical media stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
That's cheating.
But there's that moment, so I shoot music videos, and it'll be like an artistic piece. Someone's like, let's shoot on the Bolex, let's wind it up and shoot motion picture film. So 3, 2, 1 backup, there's that moment where it's 1. And it's going from New York City to California to get scanned, and it's 1 for a long time.
Ooh, isn't that interesting? Yeah,
Well,
that's scary.
And hope the sun doesn't get to it.
Yeah. Well, I've worked with companies because the interesting thing to me, and it was some of the old Westerns, like spaghetti Westerns, are being revived because there's a demand for them, and they can rescan them because they have a lot of this stuff, and it's been well archived. It's like it wasn't high res because that's not what it was when it scanned the first time, and now they're scanning it again. So I've seen some of these archive projects are really interesting because now they're creating these massive 4K files out of what was something that's 50, 70 years ago, and it's kind of wild.
Right.
And I mean, the sky's the limit. You could probably get like a 12K out of, depending on the size of the print.
Wow.
But you also have the inverse. Some of the music from a certain time, they decided we're going to keep digital masters now. And their concept for how to do that was 2 hard drives mailed to Iron Mountain and kept in a humidity and temperature controlled room, but those hard drives are 15 years old now. How much you want to bet you're going to read the data off that?
There's another problem, and I will shout out my Discord community who is spamming the live stream right now with Star Trek talk. So, hello everyone, I do see you in there. But there's also a problem with a certain era of movie and television where they made the film to digital switch, and Star Trek in particular with Deep Space Nine and Voyager, those were all shot on 480i digital cameras. Those are the highest resolution versions that exist of those shows, and there's a number of shows from that era that will never be available in a higher resolution, whereas if you go back to something from 1985, you can throw a 4K or 12K
AI
clip of that
upscale.
out. I've seen some of those cuts.
Shot-for-shot remake.
They're getting better.
Shot-for-shot remake, I think that's what we need.
Some of the other
Yeah.
problem is they didn't think to save the original 3D renders of the CG graphics, or if they did, they're in a file format that's not useful now.
Yeah.
And it's so much more has to go into thinking of digital preservation than just the original files. It's like,
Yeah.
do we have the application that can open these files? Can we convert these to another format? Can we do that while it's still possible and keep regenerating into newer formats, but not losing quality or fidelity as we're doing it?
So there's a comic, Calvin and Hobbes comic strip. You guys have all seen that. There's one of them that I still remember. He's talking to kids, how come those pictures are black and white? They said, well, the world didn't have any color in it up till whenever. And we can just say the world didn't have any resolution in it forever. Oh, the world was more grainy back then. So
We all just kind of squinted in 1998.
If you think about how terrible, how hard, challenging it is for preservation for movies and TV, don't even look at video game preservation, I think, because that is an
that's
absolute
horrible.
nightmare.
That's
That's
Yeah.
much
Stop
harder.
killing games.
Yeah, exactly. Good plug there for sure.
is it time for us to open up for questions? Would anybody in our audience have any questions? Very, very quiet, kid. We must have asked.
I'll find
them
some
all.
questions.
We had lots of questions and discussions. Oh, there we go. Okay, so. Okay, I'm gonna try, Brett, you're in charge. Brett, I'll get you to repeat the questions for our live stream people because they won't hear that microphone. No.
What's your guys' favorite part of Wilmington yet? Have you guys had any chances to explore?
Oh, good question. So Colby wants to know what everyone's favorite parts of Wilmington is, and have you explored? And yeah, so we're not going to go around. We're just going to go first. The Mike wins.
The battleship was cool.
Yes,
Yeah.
thanks Colby for taking us.
So the battleship, yeah.
So what was the battleship?
Oh, you haven't been to
I
it?
haven't been.
What?
I've been running around. man.
Well, for everybody out there, let's say, okay, there is a real, honest-to-God World War battleship, II battleship, that it just happens to be parked just on the other side from sort of downtown on the Riverwalk. And it's got like real, like 16-inch guns on it and all that kind of stuff, and knobs and that you can turn, right, Tom?
Yep.
Yes,
There's the
and now you can turn that.
But the fire button you didn't push, right?
We tried.
And anyway, it's spectacular, and that era of technology, it's just such a part of our history and everything else, and it's sitting right there, and you go see it. So, Tom, your experience?
Oh, yeah, we had fun. We went down to the engine room and went around. The engine room, of course, right away was like, right, I wanted to start there, but we did start because you can climb up into the guns. You can see through the firing sights. You can turn it, get the aiming. And so it doesn't turn the whole turret, but they got some of the stuff in there. So I like that the experience is not just ripped off, look at this thing, but they actually let you climb inside of it. They got little things so you don't bump your head because it's also scary seeing how small some of those areas were that people had to be. It's like, this is terrible. And I'm sure it wasn't, it was a nice cool day when we were there, but I don't think at war you get to choose that weather.
So can I say my other thing
We're not
about
going to
that?
war today. It's too hot.
Yeah.
I don't know how much, if you time you spent there. In that era, they could take a 20-inch gun and shoot, 25 miles, which is this thing down there, so in the circle of the towns far away, how far they can shoot on it accurately and hit something. And it's got Earth's rotation Coriolis force.
Yeah.
It's got wind, it's got everything, and they used analog computers. And they're doing this from a pitching and turning ship. And you go, how on earth did they do that in the 1940s.
Oh yeah, the beauty of being able to change and set the settings on it and see how those mechanisms worked. I mean, we couldn't open them up, but you get the idea. At least it's an analog system. The dials, the adjustments, how they zeroed them in. It was interesting. It became more of a fascination. Like, we built all this, and even when we got down to the engine deck, because you could see the layers. One of the things that me and Alan were talking about is, like, these are blueprints, and these wires and cablings are layers of blueprints that someone did by hand, and when a change was made for the routing of these, it's all done by hand. So it became a very fascinating discussion of, it's taken for granted. This would have been done in layers of CAD today, but they didn't have that. So one blueprint change meant every other blueprint related to that one had to change, and there's just a lot of thought that put in there. And of course, Alan pointed out that the minimum amount was actually put in the blueprints. It's really people who were very thoughtful and had to keep most of this in their head, so they had to be there to tangibly build these and make the instructions.
Yeah, and that thing, technology, we think of it, that kind of technology, computers and the like enabling things. So there's a computer, a mechanical computer that came up off ship from Greece 2,500 years ago. They've X-rayed, they're not quite sure what they did with it. People have been solving these problems for a long, long time before digital came, but digital is just orders of magnitude more efficient, cost-effective, so it allows all of us to do it, whereas before you kind of had to be a country the size of the U.S. to do that, right? And now we can do stuff of that scale. So anyway, I'm talking a lot there, but that's my wow, and that place is really cool.
Cool. What about the other side of the U here? What did you guys?
Food's been incredible.
Yeah.
Like that was one of my top picks. Is I fly to a lot of cities. I fly through a lot of airports and whatnot, and it's often I get out into a city and it's like, oh, there's a Jack in the Box, there's a McDonald's, there's this. I don't know that I've seen a single fast food restaurant here. All I've seen walking through downtown and everything else have been, bespoke kitchens and seafood restaurants and things like that. We had some wonderful sushi last night at
Yosaki.
Yosaki, a Japanese fusion place down the road. The food has been top notch.
Nice.
And the downtown here, how the growth in this place, like a really rapidly growing community. It's a great place to live. So a lot of people are moving here right now, and the growth. They've somehow spared their downtown the misery that so many communities downtown have suffered. And it's got the Riverwalk downtown. It feels like a small city still. And with that, that culture, food, and the film industry, the arts world is here. And do you guys notice? That's one thing I noticed when I walked in town. You walk down the street, people say hello to you. You walk in an elevator and they say hello to you, welcoming and friendly.
But you can also walk everywhere. It's super pedestrian friendly.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
I saw some incredible live music here as well.
oh, did you? Yeah, okay.
Oh yeah, every street corner seems like has a venue with some live music going. A Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, doesn't matter. There was a live band going somewhere.
Yeah, I saw some bad live music also. No, I'm just kidding. It was karaoke.
It's supposed to be that way.
I feel kind of bad exposing it all because too many people come and it'll ruin it all. So,
Joe, I said I was sorry about that.
What were you singing?
Sweet child of mine.
Another question there, John? No.
I can speak loud enough. I don't need a microphone.
Yep.
I just wanted to say, since you're in Wilmington, do you guys have any experience with the film industry that is very large here in Wilmington as well? It's a lot of recording studios and production staff that base themselves out of Wilmington. Have you guys seen any of that part while you were here?
I will say there was another question in the YouTube chat as well, mentioned Dark Horse. I didn't realize Dark Horse was here in Wilmington, so that's amazing.
So repeat the question. It says whether or not you guys had some experience with the film
production
industry
studios.
that's
I
here.
think Jeff's answer was no, so.
Right. I think you guys need to go knock on some doors.
We're acutely aware that it's here.
Yeah.
And we haven't, in our time and limited resources, we have not yet reached out and made those connections. Although, Cucaloris, came in here, and they're a gateway into that whole world, and we will connect through Cucaloris Film Festival, and really look forward to becoming involved. So many things to do in life, and only so much time, right?
Yeah, I think yesterday's panel with Kukularis was really helpful to just like teach the history of how many, I just kept adding movies to my to-watch list, because they're like, well, you know, this was filmed here in this TV show, and I just kept, you know, yeah, cool.
I've got one for you guys. This is an open source ecosystem health check-in question for everybody. So how healthy is the contributor ecosystem around core infrastructure projects? So file systems, distributed storage, hypervisors. Are we seeing enough investment, innovation, and diversity in contributors to avoid stagnation or fragmentation?
Great question. So you've got your panel of doctors here for your checkup. But why don't we start with Alan, and we'll speak about ZFS.
Yeah, ZFS is doing pretty healthy. Having Clara being able to pull in a bunch of our customers and have them contribute back has really helped. But you know, we can always be stronger, and we continue to work on that and get more people involved and more. And like right now, Clara is hiring more ZFS developers. So if you want to get involved in ZFS, definitely reach out to us.
And how does that work if someone wants to sponsor and like get a certain feature built?
Yeah, so that's basically Clara's core business is, hey, we want this ZFS feature and we'll pay you to do it. And so that's how Fast Dedupe came out, and the new AnyRAID feature that lets you mix drives of different sizes. Those are exactly that. Companies that wanted that for their product or their service, or they just needed that in ZFS, and so they came to us and we made it happen for them.
Awesome.
And so if you do develop new features for customers that are, paying you guys specifically, you guys still open source every bit of that and send it out to the community, as I'm sure you
Yeah,
have
exactly.
to.
So, and a lot of times what the customer wants out of that is that when that commit goes in, the pull request goes up in the open ZFS thing, it says sponsored by their company, right? Because
that's really cool.
They want credit for contributing back.
Yep, very cool.
We at 45 can speak on the health of Ceph.
Yeah.
Just we are contributing members to their foundation there, platinum sponsorship. Platinum?
Yep.
Diamond?
Diamond, whatever the top guy is.
What are the cool ones?
Your gemstone. But no, the health is good there. There was a little bit of a shock and awe, I guess, maybe depending on who you are, but when IBM had purchased Red Hat, there was a lot of like, oh no, like how's this gonna go? But my opinion back then is still my opinion now, watching how it's operating, watching how IBM is operating, they've believed the value of keeping Ceph the way it is. For example, go read the Ceph docs on IBM. They're the Ceph docs available to everyone else. Like they're not keeping anything there. And if anything, it was better to get it out of Red Hat's control, because they were really, back to Wendell's comment, sometimes if you've got a hammer, everything's a nail. It was just like, we are going to containerize everything and we do not care what products get containerized or not. So that's breathed some life into it. There's 2 new members of the foundation going to be announced soon, which brings money to the community, which allows tech writers and all that extra things that need to be there for the product to keep it just out of one corporate entity's control. So the Ceph community's looking pretty healthy right now as well.
Yep.
And actually, to jump on that, besides contributor and everything, it's being widely used everywhere.
Yeah.
Like one thing that we learned at the last CEFLACon is Sony. Sony's Live, like their game streaming application and all that's all operating on Ceph's powering the whole thing worldwide behind the scenes there. So they gave a really interesting talk on how that worked. And it's funny, these technologies, you don't quite know where they are, but they're powering most of the cloud services or things that we use.
Yeah, I think people are often not public about saying what they're using, and
Yeah.
for a number of reasons. I mean, most companies don't want to reveal the tech stacks that they're using for various, whatever reasons they have.
No, you raise a great point, and I think that's the change too. We're seeing it where that jump from the legacy to open source, where people are being a little more, they almost felt shame. They're like, okay, we're going to try this open source, but we're not going to tell anyone, because if it goes wrong, it's going to look really bad on us.
Yeah.
And then, because we've experienced that too, but that seems to be changing, because again, a couple CEFCons before, Sony's there. They won't tell us what they're doing. The last one that came, they're like, here's what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, I think it comes down to like, if projects and organizations and foundations and whatever don't know that the things are being used and they don't understand the problems that people are having with them, they get demotivated to work on them.
Yes.
And they also like have no reason to implement any specific feature because no one's telling them that they're using it. And I think that a lot of companies are seeing now that they need to put investment into the open source stacks that they're using, because they've continuously seen rug pulls and changes, and it kind of comes down to, you can't complain if you don't have a say in it. Like, you need to be part of that community, you need to be ingrained in it, you need to be invested in its outcomes if you are invested in it for your own business outcomes. I spoke recently with the new stack on open source and the health of kind of everything going on in there, and that was the main point. It's like, you need to have open source as part of your strategy, and doesn't mean you need a full OSPO, but you do need some strategy around how you're interfacing with open source, how you're using it, how you're contributing back, and how not only you're contributing back, but how is that open source contributing to you, and how can you build that relationship?
I like
So,
that.
so Rocky, that question, how you answer that question head on, how do you feel the health of the contributors inside Rocky?
Yeah, I
and
think
around?
the health of the contributors in Rocky is something that's always a little bit in flux. We have an interesting community in that we typically kind of rally around a couple events a year when there's minor releases, or a major release every few years. But in between that, it's mostly steady state. And what we're working on primarily now is removing humans from the loop as much as we can, and automating as much as possible, so that the humans can be more effective with the work that they're doing, instead of pushing buttons and doing a lot of workflow steps that can be done by computing and by humans.
I think there's another important aspect of this that is, this is all very like forest for the trees discussion. If you step back and you look at what's happening in the larger ecosystem, there's a couple of things that happen in the enterprise that do look troubling to the outside, but that I think projects are addressing in their own individual way. The first is you have giant, multi-billion or trillion-dollar companies that stumble across an open source project they really like, and instead of acquiring the project, they'll just acqui-hire everybody that they can find that's contributing to it. That contributes to some of the chaos that may be perceived in the community. Some projects handle that better than others. Sometimes something interesting comes out with that. Sometimes there's a discussion about licensing. It's like, okay, we still have the core people working on this really famous, amazing, open source database system, but the giant cloud provider is taking it and extending it and breaking it in interesting ways, and they're not really sharing their contributions back, because they've built a very profitable cloud service around offering the open source software. How, maybe we as open source software, the Open Source Software Foundation around that project, should try to look at commercializing it the way the cloud provider has, because they've been way more commercially successful than we have. And so there's turmoil from that kind of thing. Secondarily, AI and AI stuff is pushing containerization of workloads. It turns into a very, very paint by numbers. And I think that's some of the Ceph stuff that has bled over, is that the Ceph people have looked at how successful NVIDIA in particular has been with their blueprint system, which is, let's containerize these 3 or 4 things. And it's like, I need an AI that does this thing, but instead of building an AI that does this thing, I can actually cherry pick and just put a bunch of different AI agents in a trench coat, build a service, and then that service is this collection of agents working toward an end goal. And really that's containerized. And the containerized is really portable. It's really supportable across a whole bunch of systems. There are a lot of negative trade-offs, but the positive trade-offs are so huge in terms of making it accessible to a less skilled user base, and making the outcomes much more repeatable from a business case, that has sort of changed some of the philosophy. And this change in philosophy, I think, has driven a lot of the turmoil that the original asker has picked up on.
One thing Tom and I were talking about yesterday after Mitch, you and Wendell's demonstration of your highly available Ceph cluster on the F-16s there, was some of these things used to be super, super easy on VMware. Like people were so familiar with VMware as far as a virtualization stack that they would be happy to pay the licenses. Well, licensure situation changed, and now people are looking at more open source hypervisors like Proxmox and XCP-NG. And some of the easy point and click features that were in VMware have not yet been implemented, or are not quite as easy to do in some of these open source stacks. One thing that we would like to see a lot more of is, if you are a company who is migrating off of a corporatized licensed closed source system over to an open source hypervisor or an open source storage solution or whatever it is, make sure you're also contributing back. Yes, the software is free, but if you want the software to continue to develop, get those updates, get new features, and make it accessible, give back to that community a little bit. We've all seen the XKCD comic of the one dude in Nebraska holding up the tower of Jenga blocks. You know, while there are a ton of very healthy, very well-supported open source initiatives out there, there's a whole bunch that are that one little block at the bottom that everyone uses, but no one pays for and no one supports. And so, just something to keep in mind as
And I'll
you're
jump in on
exploring
that
all
real
these things.
quick on contributing. There's more ways to contribute than just code.
Absolutely.
You can contribute time to the documentation. You can monetarily contribute. You can just straight up tell them when something's broken.
Bug reports.
Which people
Bug
don't do
reports,
enough.
bug reports.
We are guilty of that
Yeah.
in our shop. I think everyone is a little bit. So some people might hear contribute to open source, and it's like, I'd love to, but I don't code, or whatever. But just being part of the community, answering questions, submitting problems, all that, that's huge.
And especially events like this.
And 1 sec, I really want to hear, Devin, do you have anything to add to that health of sitting there quietly?
No, I mean, there's always, developers are humans, they need to eat, and as companies get bought and sold, there is some churn, and it can be a little unsettling at times, but no, I think the health of the community is great, and I do, bug reports are very helpful. Mitch actually came at me with a bug with a pacemaker resource agent that we just weren't aware of. You know, I kind of figured out where it was broke. I didn't have the time to fix it. Apparently, they patched it once I showed them where it was broke, and you know, I'm hoping they push that merge request upstream so we can all have it.
Bad job, Brett.
Yeah, that's all I have.
Just one other
to
spot
Brett's-
that I
oh, go
I was
ahead.
just
To
gonna-
Brett's point, the different ways you contribute, some of that it can be as simple as an event like this. If you show up and tell people about how you're using it, and that, to your point, it was, we can only develop for the use cases we know about. And if you can tell us where your pain points are and what you're doing and why you're doing it that way, it helps the open source community make sure that we're going to make it useful for you as well. And that, yeah, to Brett's point, the ways you can contribute go beyond just code or documentation or money. It can literally just be talking about it and telling other people about it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Evangelizing, making YouTube videos, showing people how to use it, right? A huge part of it.
Yeah, there's a follow-up that I think is good. It's another community learning and talent pipeline question on the ecosystem. And it's, with open computing's rapid growth, is the talent pool keeping pace? Are there any gaps in skills or understanding that you guys are seeing?
Learn Linux,
It could be
learn
enterprise
Linux.
or studio, and what can be done to address those?
Great question.
College students need to learn Linux.
I'm making videos that tell people to build home labs. I don't know about you guys, it seems like a good idea.
That's what I do.
I think Wendell does that too.
I think, you know, with us, that whole thing, we try to bring people in our software side of things. And across the organization, we do some diverse stuff. There's the whole 45Drives side. We also have CAD software on the other branch of the company. And we've just, and part of it's geographical where our other location is. There's not a big pool to draw from. So we are aptitude and attitude hire people. All that said, when you want to get into the software development IT, you need people, you know, there's people that have a passion for it. There's just people's brains just naturally, you know, see a computer over there and they jump over there and understand it right away and spend time on it. And there's base skill sets underneath. But, you know, industry-wide, I mean, it's been a problem, you know, long term. And, you know, my view, you know, challenging hire to, you know, and for us, because we're not that big on remote, for better or for worse, remote work. If we're into remote work, it'd be easier. But our view of trying to hire somebody with very specific skill sets, yeah, it's a needle in the haystack. We've gone around that by aptitude, attitude, hiring young people. They don't have to be young. This young at heart works for us.
Curious people that want to learn.
Passionate.
Yeah, passionate people. And yeah, we've just really, we've had great success with that.
Our own Brett Kelly, I believe, is off to do his podcast with Dead Mouse. That's really cool stuff.
Yep.
But yeah, that's something that I've been involved with heavily at the campus, the college campus back home, is really trying to evangelize like Linux, open source. It's just such a fantastic skill that I think is lacking a lot. A lot of IT teams that we see when we work with customers, they're just using, Windows, anything that they learned in school. They don't want to go outside the box a little bit because it's scary. And so trying to push that a little further and get people out of their comfort zone, there's just a whole wide world out there. for
Well,
what's
especially
possible.
like digging deeper, people that want to know, like they don't want to just build the newest app. They want to know how operating systems work and how file systems work. And your kind of classic system and stuff of knowing how the computer works from top to bottom instead of just I build my thing at the top layer and I don't. All the infrastructure is already there. It's like the operating system is not a solved problem. There's still a lot of work to do, and we'd love to find people that are interested in actually getting down and doing, that infrastructure work because everything is built on top of it.
There's a can of worms to get open here, and for years we've been putting people together, not just on IT software, but in mechanical and science, and putting together decent sized innovation groups. And my God, so many times the productivity goes down very, very low. And it's like, and I've asked the question, I said, how do we take people that are passionate about things and make it feel like they're coming to work? And people will be doing that for a hobby, and you somehow being together as a group, it slows things down. I think we have one of the answers right now. We're really energizing our group. We watched our customers and those that move innovation quickly, something called velocity. It's keeping projects moving. And people are going to be really, really successful at are those people, probably a bunch of them sitting here. When you start something, you can't drop it. You got to build a piece of code and years and years on a keyboard and go, I just got to compile that and get it working, and I'm not leaving here. My wife's calling and going, and it's that moving at velocity. The minute you take breaks, and I'm not saying you have to be 60 hours at work, nothing but long breaks and projects kill, and they kill momentum. It's what energizes people is success. Success is flipping something on, putting it together, flipping on. Sometimes the essential white smoke of life gets released when you turn it on, and then you go back and at least you got somewhere. The unknown unknowns come out and grab you. Anyway, we're really, a lot of work on that was something we call Project DNA. That's from all the best companies, all our own experience about how to take people and prevent that thing of having a workplace culture. God, you go to some of the big tech companies. I know people work there, never worked at one myself. And my God, big software companies. Oh my God, they can grind the pace, the pace down. Get a good government project or something like that, and my God, the productivity's low, and the lack of inspiration. And you look at the people sitting around the table here, the level of inspiration in the work you do, and how do you scale it up? How do you bring people in? How do you bring young people in and not grind them down and be, oh damn, I got to go to work. Anyway, I talk at length over it. It's front and center to my life and our company and so many of our customers too. And it's just a really, really cool field. So.
Another question, and we'll get into some of the audience, the YouTube audience questions. This is an innovation in software and emerging paradigms question for everybody. So looking ahead, what software innovations or paradigms do you guys believe will disrupt open source computing? Is it advances in AI, ML infrastructure, edge computing, composable, disaggregated architectures? Which of these are overhyped and which of these are underappreciated?
You got some takers there. I'm looking at him.
We all look at Wendell.
So, if you look at, that was one of the things in my talk is sometimes, if you built this amazing, super cluster of insanity and fail over, and it's like, okay, now let's put the database server in something that's highly available. And it's like, that was one of my cautions is no, the database has its own way of clustering that is always going to be better than a generic way of clustering. You can set up 3 instances on all 3 nodes or 5 instances on all 5 nodes, and it has its own solution for high availability. And you can do that on potato class machines. You don't need Ceph, you literally need nothing other than the database system and the facilities that it provides for high availability. More and more software is sort of evolving to meet in the middle. So like knowing that generally people have some clustering facilities available, the software will be built with that in mind. Not that the database software evolves to run on Ceph, that's not what I'm saying, but just that knowing that you do have a cluster available, then maybe if the software needs it and it needs that kind of fine-grained control, it'll build it. And so hyperconvergence and having a generic set of, you know, compute and video resources, just here's a pool of storage, here's a pool of compute, here's a pool of other kind of compute, which is, you know, VGA or, you know, video or whatever. Being able to, on the fly, allocate that for the particular problem that you're trying to solve so that you have a generic form of compute. Yeah, it's a commoditization. It can't not end in commoditization. Eventually, all of the cloud providers will be ruthlessly competing with one another to sell you storage. And that will be a beautiful thing when that's a commodities exchange, because you can use a tool. It's like, okay, we're waking up on Tuesday. Who's got the cheapest storage? Okay, it's local storage still, or it's local storage plus this much cloud storage. And it turns into a commodities exchange, just like who's got the cheapest oranges? Who's got the cheapest soybeans? Eventually, that's where we'll be, in a healthy market that's not corrupted somehow.
Yeah, and I think to Doug's point at the opening session, a lot of it is where can the software catch up to the hardware, but also where can the hardware catch up to the software? As we've always seen, you know, sometimes the hardware is driven by the software could be faster if we could provide the hardware that could do this. But a lot of times, like we see right now with NVMe and so on, it's how do we adapt our computers that are still pretending they're, you know, PDP-11s to deal with the fact that we have now hundreds or even thousands of cores and terabytes of RAM and petabytes of flash to actually catch up and take advantage of all of that.
Well, you know, you say that, and I just think all the things that I've seen over the years. You know, parallel computing was one of them, right? Mm-hmm. And it's just so hard to rethink the way we solve problems as humans, right? I mean, you know, the single-threaded problem solving. It's just once you want to go into actually there's some places that yielded easily to it, but I think the vision that, you know, was put forth many decades ago. I'm going to go back into the 90s, and it's just you know, there's a stall on that. I've also lived through three kind of AI revolutions where it was going to obsolete absolutely everything on Earth, and yeah, hype. There's a lot of hype and a lot of stuff. I just love the whole grind of technology, the market, you know, where stuff fits, what can be done, all the beautiful things. I think all the products, the technology products that we see that come out and die, right? There are so many of them, you know, and there's these paths that don't go anywhere. And then there's this sort of this grind, there's the things that become generally useful to a lot of people. And, you know, just said, if the marketplace works, if the forces, you know, the wonderful forces of a free market are allowed to work, and the forces of darkness, like, you know, proprietary solutions. Oh yeah, well, they're working against it. Like, they're trying to make a buck, and you know, the giant tech companies got to keep going and going. And they try to do it. They try to lock people in, and and the games that get played to, you know, circumvent the open market. And it was fascinating. It's been so cool to watch it over, you know, 50. Yeah, I was old enough, 45 years of being old enough to watch it go and being aware of it. So it's a great question. I wish I had a crystal ball. We are now at a point, you know, 45Drives, we got customers that drive us, listening to those customers, and then looking what's out there. You know, we put stuff in the hardware and software thing together, that complete open source solution that's front and center what we do. Hardware, we love the hardware side of it too, but I love navigating it, and I wish I could claim that I really had the ability to influence in whatever way, but it's not. I love navigating it. Fun.
Real quick for Doug and Mitch, to piggyback on the customer dialogue, here's a dealer's choice of 3 topics from the chat that you guys could choose to address. They're all 45 specific questions. So I'll let you take your pick. One is, when is 45Drives going to make a storage server with bioneural gel packs? Another one is, when are 45Drives going to tap into the hydrogen sensor network?
Erosion.
Erosion, excuse me. And then the last one, any multi-node servers in the pipeline, or are you sticking to server per U? I'd imagine that would be a lot of engineering effort, but it could be nice for a head node redundancy.
If I put the first two, Mitch, I'll just answer. They're not quite in the project hopper yet, so we'll throw that off there for now. Do you want to tackle the other one?
Yeah, I mean, with Ceph, I think it makes less sense with that being our kind of marquee clustering solution. It's been kicked around from time to time to have like a blade server kind of configuration, especially if we were going to go with very, very small Ceph nodes, like 1 to 2 OSDs per, it may make sense. But in most cases, we're looking to do a lot more dense clustering than that. But for compute, absolutely, there's...
Tom is playing Lego over here with...
he's building one for us right here.
I feel there's an idea here somewhere where we could slide these in and maybe top load a chassis like hard drives, but with small little nodes. I don't know.
Yeah, and you know what's funny is I haven't had a chance to sit down with Mitch yet this year, but usually I come here and I'll light a fire under Mitch and Brett, and a year later they churn out a product. That was actually going to be my pitch to them this year, is maybe a multi-node, microcluster, mini node kind of thing.
I'm like, my mind goes all the time on that, and I keep looking. There's this thing of right sizing, right? We're in an industry that's really matured, and the highest power boards have gone up and up, and they're saturated with the market. Really takes you build another double the core count and something, you're not enabling that much more. One of the things that miniaturization and low power and parallelism, the ideas on how to fit these things in. I really love the idea of taking these, the whole world of micro-sized board from the Intel stuff like that's inside that ARM and whatever else, and stacking as many of them in as we can. And then you got to do, what do we do about power? I got to figure out how power, micro power makes it easier. I got to get redundancy in power. But then you get, bus bars are part of the game. And then, and you got to do that. And then it's the communications between them. How do you right size that? And because otherwise you get a cost blow up when you want to make it really sing together. But there's lots of solutions there.
But you also already did the stackable last year. So we have the edge connectors for PCIe between these. So you have a lot of the components just in a different configuration. So if you took an XL60, put that little edge connector that you had for that box and loaded some version of this that's a little different, that is a clustered computer solution that you have some of the components for.
Yeah, the stackables is lots of interesting sort of stackables. We've done a bunch of work on it and built some stuff, and kind of you got a couple on the way, and it's all in the way we communicate between them. But that's the way it's going to go. We're going to get there. We're going to get someday.
Wendell's dying to say something.
As a practical matter, you're already there. Like, you don't even have to do anything. If you put 5 Stornados, that's only 10U. That's not a lot. Unless you're in one of those insanely space-constrained data centers, that's not a lot of space. And most data centers are power constrained now because we're on our way to 600 kilowatt racks because of AI, which is insane. So I don't think you guys need to chase that particular unicorn. You're already there. If somebody has a clustered solution that they're after 10U to get 5 nodes, only 20% of your spend is redundancy. That is the cherry icing on the cake. Like, that is turnkey. It's ready to go. 200 gigabit between nodes. Like, that's ready. It's ready today.
And we can even do it at a smaller scale, right? If Tornadoes, if the F-16 isn't necessary, we have all the way down to our MI4s, which are single U, right? If density and compute is more of what you're looking for, and a little bit of storage, like you said, you could get thousands of cores in 10U or 20U.
Better than the existing 10U solutions out there as well from other manufacturers.
Got another one to get in here if we've got time, Doug.
Yeah, the very last, it's 12:00 right now, cell phone time. So let's get one more.
All right, here is I was going to ask a creator one, but I'll do one for the whole panel. So this is data sovereignty, security, and governance. As open source infrastructure becomes more widespread, how are issues like data sovereignty, privacy, security, and regulatory compliance being handled? What new patterns or best practices are emerging, in your opinion?
There's a lot of ratification around CMMC controls, CIS controls. They're now becoming a word that people understand, and I see people nod their head, even if that's not what Jeff does anymore. He's like, I understand those controls. I know Wendell does because he works in the IT community a lot. So the frameworks are out there. They're becoming more prevalent. There's definitely more awareness. There's now job titles where you have that job title as a GRC officer and things like this. So we do have frameworks, and it doesn't matter if it's open source or not in terms of applying those frameworks. But the good thing about open source is it almost always, I don't really know open source project that don't have levels of data sovereignty with them. Open source is almost always attached, adjacent to any type of data sovereignty where we understand we want to have control over data. This was part of the discussion yesterday where even people, the average consumer who does not think deeply about technology or understand the underlying file systems, does understand there's a risk of only having their data in one of those places, either that's Microsoft or Apple or Google. So they're thinking a lot more about that. And we see inroads. HexOS is still kind of plugging away as a way to bring it to the consumers, because all of us are going, HexOS, no, it's like too dumbed down. But then we got to remember who's the target audience. Right. And there's those devices that are coming out, and the small little mini NASs aren't just for the home labbers, it's for kind of more general public people who go, I want to have a NAS. Some of my kids did not follow my technical path, and I was proud of one of them because they said, I think I need a NAS at my house because I want to be able to store this somewhere else. I'm like, yes, Dad can take care of this. But then they said, I want to do it. And I was like, oh, you're finally seeing it. And it was because of all the things they have that they want to be able to store it locally. So I think there's a convergence of all these. So on the higher up side, frameworks give us a common language so we can say, is this secure? Because is this secure is not an answer. You can't just say yes, because secured to what if you haven't followed guidelines? So now we have those frameworks. They're pretty ratified. They're pretty solid, whether you're following the NIST ones, the CIS, or any blending of them. And then coming down to the data sovereignty, I think even people are starting to understand that are not in the tech community that that's an important aspect. So the two, I see it somewhat different, but there's a lot of ways it's going forward right now.
I think even from your talk yesterday on the regulatory aspects, just using the cloud doesn't absolve you of actually having to, even when you're using the cloud, a bunch of those checkboxes are still your responsibility.
Yes, and Google a shared responsibility matrix. Once you start looking at them, you're like, oh wait, I'm responsible for a few things. Yes, you are.
Almost all of the things, as it turns out. Yeah. So, and if you're going to be responsible for it anyway, you might as well have complete control over it. Absolutely. Instead of, also having to deal with whatever they're going to decide to do.
You want to keep your data secure, keep it at home. Oh, by the way, you'll save 5 to 10 times versus keeping it out in cloud.
Yeah. What's funny is during Tom's talk yesterday, speaking about not keeping your data in the cloud and the explosive price of cloud price storage, is there are some circumstances where if you put your data in the cloud, it is so expensive, you could hold your data on servers that you own and operate on your own facility, install all your own infrastructure, and pay a full-time employee to manage them for you versus putting them in the cloud.
About my project, people are always like, well, why don't you store it on the cloud? And I'm like, I have 600 terabytes of pictures of New York. I can't ever afford, for now, I can't afford.
Yeah, it would make the project untenable.
It would be over. It would be like, thanks.
So anyway, yeah, great. That's straight to the heart. My every instinct in my body has always said our data is mission critical. The rest of our infrastructure can blow up. You get an insurance settlement, you buy new stuff. If our data disappears, now we have our people number one, our data number two, right? And you want to keep your data close. You want to look after it, keep it close. Oh, and keep it far too. You need that DR batch as well. But it's on our premises. We've done that since we're tape drives in the early '90s, and I'd be taking them home, and then kind of learned about tape. You better check them because a lot of time they didn't actually record anything in the damn things.
Now you got two geographically separate places to keep all the 45Drives data. So.
You got it, and we've always had stuff in people's basements, sets of hard drives. Take a volume home, ZFS volume home. So, look, we are now over time. I want to thank, number one, everybody who came here, everybody who's listening, and participating in the discussion, and most of all, I want all you people who have traveled here and spent all your time and shared so much with us. incredibly valuable to myself and I know to our organization, and hope you guys take some stuff away, and hope there's lots of collaborations, lots of ideas, and, you know, you guys find stuff to do with each other as well as us. So, and off to another year, and we'll talk about what we're doing next year.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thanks, folks.
Thanks.
Yeah.
This show was recorded